How much confidence can Eddie Hearn really have in Conor Benn's ability as a welterweight when he's still constantly trying to match him with this middleweight in Chris Eubank Jr.? And not just constantly, but desperately trying to match him against Chris Eubank Jr. And this is in light of all the controversy that surrounds the fight. Yeah, I know the fight is commercially probably quite big, but wouldn't Conor Benn challenging for a world title at 147 be quite big as well? If you really believe in this guy as a welterweight, why not get him back on track and go in that direction? Perhaps he doesn't really believe in him as a welterweight. Perhaps Eddie Hearn thinks that Conor Benn is going to get beat sooner rather than later, in which case he wants to make the most money out of him when he gets beat. So better that happens against Chris Eubank Jr. in a big pay-per-view bonanza than against Jerome Ennis or some other welterweight for far less money. And his reputation would take a bigger hit losing at welterweight compared to losing at middleweight to Chris Eubank Jr. because Eubank Jr. is so much bigger. You can always say, oh, well, stepped up too many weight classes and lost. It happens. I'm still a beast at welterweight. They can come with that angle. Whereas if he gets beat at welterweight, how are they going to sell a fight against him and Chris Eubank Jr. then? I'm sure they still could, but it wouldn't have the same luster to it. So again, I repeat the question. How much faith can Eddie Hearn really have in Conor Benn's ability as a welterweight if he's still so desperate to make this Eubank Jr. fight? And the thing is, I thought Conor Benn was progressing very nicely prior to this random detour of the Chris Eubank Jr. fight. Yeah, he was fighting faded opponents, Chris Algieri, Van Heerden, and so on. But he was disposing of them the way you would want him to. There are plenty of prospects who wouldn't have looked so impressive against those guys. But Conor Benn blew them away. And it was never a case of them just feeding Conor Benn pies and never testing him from day one in his career. He was tested. They put him in with that French guy, Cedric Peno. He went life and death with him first time. A couple fights later, they put him back in with the same guy. If they were trying to protect him, they wouldn't have done that. They were trying to develop him. They thought, you know what, he's improved enough in the gym. Let's put him back in there against Peno and see how much improvement there's really been. He fought Formella, who was a guy that went the distance with Sean Porter. And as I say, fought Algieri and Van Heerden. So the trajectory that he was on, as far as I'm concerned, was a good one. He was being managed and developed very well. But maybe there was something they saw in the gym. Maybe there's something they saw in his mentality. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that the top of the welterweight division has got people like Terence Crawford in it. Errol Spence, although he seems a bit of a diminished force now. Jerome Ennis, of course. Maybe Eddie Hearn thought, you know what, the gap between my guy and those guys is insurmountable. Conor's never going to be able to bridge that. He'll never be anywhere close to their level. He's going to get made mincemeat of if he steps in against any of those three. I know Eddie Hearn doesn't say that publicly, but is that what he was thinking privately? That not only is Conor Benn not ready now for those guys, that he'll never be ready. You guys let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you've got another explanation for why Hearn is still desperately trying to pursue this Eubank Jr. fight, then you let me know. Obviously, I'm aware of the money aspect, but if Conor Benn becomes world champion at welterweight, the Eubank Jr. fight's still going to be there. And in fact, it might be even bigger then. And Eubank Jr. will be older and potentially more beatable. But Eddie Hearn wants to do it now, before Conor Benn's even challenged for a world title at 147. Is it just about the money? I know some of you are going to argue that. I know it's just the money. Eddie Hearn has this smash and grab mentality. If he sees a big fight on the horizon, forget about our previous plans for this fighter. Let's just go in and grab this money right away. It's good for our business. It's good for the zone. They're screaming for pay-per-views. They want pay-per-views. We're going to deliver one for them with Conor Benn against Eubank. Is that all it is? Does Eddie Hearn really believe that Conor Benn is going to beat Eubank Jr.? Based on Conor Benn's last fight and Eubank Jr.'s last fight, it looks like a tall order for Conor Benn. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you guys tell me who look more impressive. And all styles make fights. Conor Benn is a lot faster than Liam Smith, a lot more athletic, a lot more dynamic, but he's smaller, he's less experienced, he's probably not as physically tough in terms of punch resistance. He's not as proven as Liam Smith. They put him in with that Mexican guy last time out. He won, but the Mexican guy managed to go the distance, stood up to Conor Benn's shots. He's not as big as Chris Eubank Jr. Maybe he's got a better chin than Chris Eubank Jr. I don't know, but that performance didn't fill me with confidence. If I was a Conor Benn team member, I might be biting my nails a little bit at the prospect of him going in against Chris Eubank Jr. next, off the back of that performance. I'm not saying it was a bad performance, but it wasn't a performance that made me think he can blow out a middleweight. Some of you may argue he doesn't have to blow out Eubank Jr. He can outwork him over the course of 12 rounds. Eubank Jr. throws a lot of shots. Eubank Jr. can move. Eubank Jr. can tie you up. Eubank Jr.'s fast himself. Maybe not quite as fast as Conor Benn overall, but he's got the height and reach advantage that evens that up. So I just wanted to put that out there with regards to Eddie Hearn's intentions for Conor Benn at this stage. Does he really believe in his guy at 147 or not? Let me know what you think.
And before I go, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers to my Patreon page. I cover loads of different topics in my weekly podcast, as you can see on screen right now, from current events to deep dives down the rabbit hole and everything in between. I'm really enjoying the feedback and the discussions we've been having on there lately. So if you'd like to join the conversation, just click the link in the description box below.
Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.